to the Curate for Women Network. Today, we are not with a woman. We are with Adam Beary. Hello, Adam.
Hey, thanks for having me today. Super honored to be talking with you.
Yay, I'm super honored to have you. I'm so excited. I think that we have spoken about this for quite some time.
Well, a minute.
Before we even decided that we were bringing men to the network, so thank you. So for those of you who do not know who Adam is the CEO and the founder of Bear Process Safety Engineering Firm.
That's
Is it
correct.
an engineering firm?
Well, it's a process safety engineering firm.
Okay.
So we don't do design, but we have engineers that we employ. So yes, it's in the engineering space.
Okay, so this is very interesting because behind us is this beautiful mural, and I'm like, I haven't been in many engineering spaces, but in my mind they don't look like this.
They do not. I became an engineer because my parents were in the industrial space and always said I'd make a good engineer. I was good at math. Looking back at it now, I am the atypical engineer. Definitely a creative mind, entrepreneurial mind, love art. I am an artist, so yeah, I don't fit most. This building, when we got into it, was all tan and carpet, and now it's concrete and color. So but we love it that way. We feel like it makes us successful in a lot of things that we do because we're kind of zigging a little bit where everybody's zagging. It promotes a little more fun, a little more joy, a little more creativity, and a lot of that happens from something as simple as a wall, to be honest.
And I love this for. First of all, it looks like the Curate color, so good job. All right, so this episode, we're really going to focus on Adam, the person, okay? And the Curate Allies series is really exploring men who are in positions to really honor the woman in their space, to really speak up for women in their space, to create policies and things of that nature that fully supports the woman when it doesn't directly benefit you at all.
Perfect.
And so we've had plenty of conversations, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you are a really good ally. I remember a while ago us having a conversation about, things that you were learning about women in the space of engineering and how this profession really didn't suit a woman at all. And so we started to explore some ways that you can become more cognitive of how to make these spaces more equitable for women who work for you. But before we get into all of that,
All the fun stuff.
Adam, are you from Baton Rouge? Where are you from?
I'm not from Baton Rouge. I'm from a small town, French Settlement, Louisiana. I met my high school sweetheart there. My parents moved there in '89, just before I came along, and moved to Baton Rouge to go to LSU, and I love it. It's home. I lived in the country too long. My family still lives there, though, so we get to visit. But, yeah, we live in Baton Rouge here. In South Baton Rouge, and we love it. We travel the world. I always thought my wife would, want to move somewhere else, and she consistently said this the other day, that this is just home. We love home. No matter where we go, we want to see it succeed, and we love living here.
Baton Rouge is definitely the place to be. It is definitely a really good place to raise family, to build your business. And so, listen, most people say, people from Louisiana, or small towns in general, they always meet their wives.
That's right.
They always meet their spouses. They're always those high school sweethearts. So how did you and your wife meet? How did you even know in high school that this was the woman for you?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I was not, some people might not believe this today because I'm very outgoing, very confident person. I was not that way in high school as much. I was kind of the clown, but I was not, let's just say I wasn't the greatest with the ladies, all right? And the first time I saw my wife, I just thought, like, wow, like, she's beautiful. And we were at a party, and I thought, I don't know why. I thought, man, I'll just go talk to her. And she liked me. She was talking back to me. So I was like, okay. And we started dating a couple weeks later. And then really throughout all the different changes in my life, I went to college. She went to college. She went to vet school. We've never had a split. And people always ask us about that. And somebody had asked me about that recently, and I said, it just was like, this was
divine.
Not the best I thought I could, the best there was. There was nothing about her that I thought, man, I got to go get somebody else. I'm not settling. This is the woman of my dreams that I happened to find when I was a dumb kid, and I just count myself grateful and lucky that she stuck with me. I put her through some tough stuff with our business and all kind of stuff, but she's been by my side the whole time, so I wouldn't have it any other way. And sometimes I feel like people are naive in their youth, and I met this person. We probably had some of that, but it's been a wonderful blessing for me. It's never been a time where I thought, man, I made a dumb decision in my life.
So your wife is beautiful.
She's
She
beautiful,
is.
that's right.
And she's so quiet. So I think it's funny that she actually liked you and she was talking to you.
I think it's because she couldn't get a word in edgewise. Maybe she didn't really like me. I was talking and she just stuck around. She never had nothing to say.
No, I think that you really have something special and y'all are together. I think that y'all are adorable. So growing up, were there any women in your life that really poured into you in a way that really cultivated this person that you are today?
Really, it sounds super cliche, but my mom. My mom grew up super poor. She had a child with her first marriage. She was very young. She got a divorce. She was traveling the world, working, the country, the state, working odd-end jobs, doing what she had to do to survive as a single mom. And she went back and got a college education when I was younger. She graduated from Southeastern University when I was in 4th grade. I remember going to class with her, coloring while she's learning. And really, I guess it took me until I got to college, but that made a huge impact on me.
Yeah.
That she just got to a point in her life. She was older. She didn't care. She said, I'm going to go get an education. And she really leaned into it and did not just, this is going to be good for me and my family, but, we would get stopped. I still get stopped today. People that had my mom as a teacher in the 15 short years she was a teacher. She's now retired. She does substitute teaching. That loved her. She always cared about her students. She came from a background that was not super diverse. So what I was really proud of her is, honestly, older in her career, she learned a lot of things and took that to heart on how she worked with kids, how she worked with kids from low-income families, maybe that didn't grow up like she grew up, right? How she dealt with, most of the schools she taught at were lower grade schools that didn't have a lot of funding. And I was super proud that she was a teacher there that people looked to, admired in the space. And so, she always, I think, portrayed to me this idea as well of being helpful. My mom is a quiet lady. She would prefer a book, but she's always helpful. If somebody calls her, somebody needs something, even if she don't want to do it, she typically does it. So she poured a lot into me. Something we've talked about before of you might be doing something that's not the best for you, but it's the best for people around you.
Absolutely.
And almost sometimes to an extent of, even if somebody does you wrong or you give them some other chances because you might be the only person in their life giving them chances. She instilled that in me, and I really have thought about that through my whole life.
So your mom was very quiet. Your wife is really quiet. I'm assuming you got this personality, this big personality from your dad.
I got it from my dad. My dad is loud. He's so loud now you can't hear. So it was just all of the men in our family, for the most part, are loud, jokesters, kind of center of attention. I learned a lot of work ethic from my dad. My dad, he's been in the industrial space his whole career.
Is your dad an engineer?
My dad is not an engineer, but he has worked his way up to be a plant manager, even though he's not an engineer, just through work and work in the field and understanding his craft really well. That was something I was always proud of him about, that, basically he works a job he's not on paper qualified for, and he does a fantastic job at it. So he had kind of this approach of everything was work. You get up at 8 a.m. on Saturdays to rake the leaves and do all that kind of stuff. And I always thought that was co-balanced really well with my mom, of just being, she had your back. Anything you needed from her, you had kind of a safety net there. And so, those two made me who I am today, for better or for worse, good times and bad times. We've had ebbs and flows in our relationship, but it is definitely, I can see all the chains of how I became who I became. But yeah, definitely my volume now. That's from my dad. He was pretty loud.
And first of all, I feel like growing up in the 90s created some sort of work ethic in all millennials, because waking up at 8 o'clock on a Saturday raking leaves. I feel like that was everybody's life. And don't come in here for water because there's a hose pipe outside.
Hose pipe outside. You know, you want to go do this thing. Well, what are you doing for me to make that work? There wasn't this idea of like, we just got given stuff. I think I got a phone, maybe a 14, but I had to like work for the phone. And then I had
that was like a super huge privilege,
super
wasn't
huge
it?
privilege. I got my first job at 15. You weren't supposed to have a job, so they paid me under the table at the restaurant. I worked restaurant in the summer. I did construction work. I did concrete work. I worked at the plant my dad was at. So
listen, this is why Courtney knew. In that first conversation,
right.
she was like, "Oh, he a hustler."
That's right. That's right. And I didn't really know until you know, I got into engineering in my career. I wasn't the kid necessarily. I had a lot of work ethic, but I didn't have the lemonade stand or selling stuff. You know, kids today, I'm always amazed. They come up with ideas on how to make money and how to just kind of earn for themselves. You know, I was like grunt work, earning, right? Washing dishes, doing that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, as I got into my career, I learned that I really had a passion for like building stuff and people. And so that's kind of how I got on this journey. But the work ethic piece did make the early grind of a business easier, honestly, because it was hard work, but I was used to hard work, so that wasn't something that I shied away from.
You have built something really phenomenal here with your business at such a young age. And to see something like that in a small town, I always say Baton Rouge is like this big small town. Right. But to build something like this here is very meaningful because not a lot of places like this exist for people who are young. And so how did you end up in this space? When you were in school, did you automatically know that you were going to start your own company? Or were you in a space where you were like, something is missing, and I know the piece to make this work?
So, no, I didn't really know that. For those who went to school with me, they'll know this, chuckle about this. I was not the best student. I attended all the football games. I was friends with everybody in the class, but you know, I had a 2.86 GPA in school, so my options were a little bit limited, right? I had worked at the plant a lot, so I had a lot of good experience. But for the bigger companies, my not wife at the time, but wife now, lived in Louisiana, and I didn't want to move, so I wanted to stay in Louisiana. And then for bigger companies, most of the time they might have 1 or 2 sites in Louisiana. So I was competing with somebody from across the country who might have a 4.0, and so it was tough for me to get certain opportunities. So I ended up getting a job at a small engineering firm in town. They did design work. And just a traditional consultancy firm. They've been around since '74. I was the 6th engineer that got hired. At one point when I left the company, they were at 20 engineers.
Oh, sweet.
And they just were, honestly, because it was such a small company, I got an ability very early in my career to be on heavy projects, client-facing opportunities. I was maybe approving invoices and timesheets and stuff that is a 3-year, 4-year engineer, you're not typically doing.
Right.
But the company was just at the size that it gave me a lot of experience with that. From that life, you know, everything was kind of old school at the company. They did a lot of engineering design work, and one of the jobs that we do was kind of just like a service that we provided on the side. I did some research, realized in our marketplace there was a big vacuum in that service, and I just said, well, I could just, you know, I've been doing all this stuff, I could start my own company. So a little bit of belief in myself, a little bit of naiveness, let's say. Delusion. Yeah, I had this business plan. I was going to get like so much money year one. It wasn't going to matter, which is maybe why I quit my job with no money and my wife didn't have a job.
And that's why Courtney was like,
that's why it was a little
you
bit,
better make it work.
Yeah, it was a little bit of pressure there.
Yeah.
But yeah, once I started it, I mean, I just loved it. And I mean, I think there was a point in time where I was at the consulting firm before where I was managing some folks and, you know, they were progressing in their career and I just really enjoyed seeing that. I enjoyed speaking with clients and giving them services maybe in a different way that other people were. And that kind of gave me the confidence to say, hey, I should do this on my own.
So tell me a little bit of what does this type of engineering look like and how does that work for your partners?
So we are a process safety firm. So a lot of people hear safety and they think hard hats, ladders. We don't do any of that stuff. We are engineers by degree. And so every company here that has what's deemed as a hazardous chemical, sometimes we make things in everyday life like plastics or rubber tires even, or chemicals that we might put together to use as refrigerants in our cars.
Okay.
All those things have chemicals that could be deemed as hazardous. So the processes are supposed to have a certain level of technical safety. So if you go out and you turn a valve or a piece of equipment breaks, that could have dire consequences to the process, and it could overpressure or over temperature and release a harmful chemical or have a fire. So what we do is we come in and we make sure that the company is compliant with government regulations and their own corporate regulations to prevent those incidents from happening. So in a way, I mean, we do keep the community safe when we work with our partners. So we're not coming in as an agency to grade them, we're coming in as an assistance to help them. And we think that it makes our community safer, not only for our workers, but for the community at large. A lot of our facilities are not that far away from neighborhoods. In the past, we've taken a lot of different approaches. Now we're trying to be a new age solution to make it simpler for the company to manage their programs, and therefore it's safer across the board. We don't want to make it where they have to call us. We want to come in and fix what they're doing so they can be safe for the people around them and they can buy into it. It's easy to buy into it. So one of the things on our website says we're trying to take cancer out of Cancer Alley. We think that we've impacted our community and an industry in a negative way for so long. We're trying to be a change in a positive direction. And we've seen that most of our partners want to do this. They just maybe don't know how, or they don't have the resources to. So that's where Bear comes in.
That is phenomenal. You know what? I'm sure there is a study, but if not, there should be a study on how could you be such a horrible student and figure this out,
Well, I think some of my horrible studentness was lack of trying, I'm not saying that in I didn't try, I was really smart. It was really more of an idiotic way. I should have put more effort and time into it. I always tell students, hilariously, when I go back and talk to the university now, never thought that would have happened. I always tell students, hey, in a lot of ways, don't take my path. Studies are important, things are important. But I do think what benefited me a lot is the relationships and the things that I built along the way. There's been a lot of times in my business where people offered to help or wanted to be a part of what we were doing, who really I didn't even realize thought of us in that way or knew who I was, and it might have just been one time or two times that I had a good relationship with them. I showed them kindness, and then they wanted to help what we were doing.
What is it they say people want to do business with people that they like, know, and trust?
Correct.
More so people that they like.
More so people they like.
Because I feel like you can build trust, trust with people that you like. Okay, so within this firm that you've built, how diverse is this space, meaning culturally and gender-wise?
So culturally, we've seen some advances in diversity throughout the years. In this industry, South Louisiana, Gulf Coast region, that was not traditionally the case, right? But it's been the advancement of engineering and other cultures, people coming to school in the United States, and then we're hiring from our local institutions. Although it has grown throughout the years, our female presence in the industry is still somewhat lagging. The industry has put a lot of effort into it, but we're seeing mixed reviews and mixed opportunities depending on the different companies that you work for. And I think it's an interesting conversation because in even some of the companies I know that are the largest in pushing DEI and pushing expectations and opportunities for women, sometimes they still even don't see great results. So it's been a conversation to say, what in an industry are we creating? And something that we've talked about before. Is it an environment, is it an atmosphere, is it the path that we're giving? Not just, hey, we've gave this opportunity, or we supported this conference, or we gave you a spot when you're pregnant to park closer. Right? All those things are good things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're creating an environment for women to thrive in the industry. One of the biggest issues I think I saw, and I do not blame women for this, is I think for a long time the only path was for a woman to act like a male in this industry. And honestly, I think what we have found here at Bear is the women who work for us offer a unique perspective that men do not offer. So if you try to emulate what I am doing in this space, you lose the thing that makes you unique. And I think that's why the women here at Bear have been successful in their careers, because we allow them to be who they are, and we value the unique experiences that they have and the unique perspectives that they have.
Yes.
One of the saddest things I see in our industry is when I can tell a female in our industry is the way that she is because of hurt she's had in the past, things she's got turned down for before, and she changed who she was to meet that. And what it happens is then in that space, she can't be inclusive of everyone else who maybe was like her in the past, or the way that she's teaching those in the past is to say, hey, I know that typically you would want to be empathetic, but women can't be empathetic because men aren't empathetic in this space, and then all empathy is gone. Well, to me, I think that's a hurt for the industry. That's not a positive, but I also understand why that was the message for a long time, because it was the only way to succeed. So I'm encouraged by some of the things that we hear now, and as a small piece, what we try to do at Bear, is to say, hey, if we are going to value diversity, whether that be females, whether it be different cultures, let's truly value the diverse ideas and use them. Let's not just say, we all do it the same, but we look different. So that's diversity. That's not true diversity to me.
Yes, and I totally agree. And so with you adopting such a new way to show up for women in this space, how has that helped the culture here? How has that helped every person here to feel confident in who they are and the voices and the ideas that they bring to your table?
I think it allows everybody to feel empowered to pitch an idea, say how they feel, do it how they want to do it. And they're focused more on the goal as a company than am I grading how they do it? Am I grading this skill or this metric that I created with all the things that I've had in my life and all the things I've been given to me? I understand that what we just had a conversation about my bad grades and whatever, right? I was afforded this opportunity both because of how I look and because I'm male. There are some aspects of that. Did I work hard? Yeah. Sure, but there's some things, some doors that were easier for me that is not for others. I don't know a lot of females in our industry who work in engineering firms that didn't have great grades or didn't have immaculate records or didn't do the right things, right? That line is thinner for them to make a mistake or to move in a different direction. It's easier for someone to write them off because of a verbal altercation they had with someone or the way that they said something to someone, right? And so because we're hyper aware of that, we try to make it known that that is not the case here. So anytime, and I think it's just, we have to do it, anytime there is public praise, make sure to go out of our way to tell the people in our space who maybe have never gotten praise before, you got praise. If there's an opportunity where maybe we didn't see eye to eye on something, I come back and say things as simple as, hey, you know, this is just one incident. I still think you're great at what you're doing. This is just a chance for us to improve. If this came across in any different way to you, that was not the intent. And then lastly, I mean, we have to change the way that we communicate in some ways. I think it's been very difficult for this industry to not be either super hot or super cold. Just be super candid, tell you whatever you need to hear because you need to hear it in tough love, or let you run rampant and it doesn't give you a lot of path in your career. So it's why it's one of our core values here to be radically sincere. The idea there is we're to the heart of the matter, but we understand the challenges and the life events that you've had, and we try to make sure that you're responding to what we're saying in that way. The telltale sign I tell all of our staff is if someone's not responding the way you thought to what you said, probably 70% of the time it's you did not communicate it the way that you thought it did. So I encourage them to come back. Let's talk it through again. Let's try to make sure that we get on the same page. It's an extra effort, but I believe that it's worth it to do the extra effort, and that's kind of what we've seen be success here at Bear. Someone made a joke one time, you know, how do you get women in the space? I said, well, we pay them what they're worth. We treat them equal. It works pretty good. You know, I don't know if you want to try it, but it seemed to work all right, you know.
All you got to do is respect them.
All you got to do is respect them. So, but even as a management team, we're cognizant to make sure, subconsciously sometimes we're not creating a space because naturally men will walk in and say, I deserve more. And if you're not paying attention, You'll give someone less who's doing more work just because they didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
That's not fair to that person either, right? So as a management team, you have to be consistently on it and evaluating yourself, not just evaluating the employees.
I think you said a few things that are really powerful, but in particular, you acknowledging that, like, yeah, I was not a great student, but I'm an engineer, I'm in this space, and there were doors that were open for me because I am a white male and I can get the job done. I think that that is very powerful to acknowledge because a lot of times, oftentimes, women need to hear that you actually know this about yourself. While last year we did the Curate for Women conference was centered on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you and I had a conversation on like, what does that actually look like in engineering for women? Because I was curious. I'm not obviously an engineer. I've never pursued this path, but I do know a lot of women who are in this space that are very conscious of the things that they do personally that could affect their career professionally. One thing that you mentioned was a statistic that shows when female engineers get pregnant, they take 7 years off work, and then it's hard for them to come back into this space. Can we talk a little bit about like, how is that, why do women take 7 years off first? And then how and why is it so hard for them to come back into that space once that 7 year sabbatical is done?
So I can't obviously speak for women. I can speak on the outset of what I think I'm seeing. I think that's what you're asking me anyway. But the first part of it is I think we have not in the past created a conducive environment for women to take time off. And then also the environment that they've been in while they were not having children was so fast-paced and so difficult, so many barriers for them to succeed, sometimes more than their counterparts, that they just naturally feel this will not be doable with children. I will have to miss every event with my child, and that's not the way I want to raise my child. So what we have to do, and I think, honestly, we've required that of dads as well, is to say, well, moms take care of kids and go to baseball practices, so dads don't need to be there. So really, holistically, we have to create an environment where there is a true work-life balance. And what that means is we have to set certain boundaries, and we have to respect that those boundaries need to be met, but anything outside of that boundary is not required. What's tough is creating a culture of inclusion and connection while also saying that, right?
Yes.
Work is work. We're not expecting you don't have to come to the social event we had. But if we create a culture where everybody comes to the social event, well, that means we're creating something during the day where they feel like they're part of the team. I think what can be difficult for women once they have a child and they take this time and they enjoy this time and getting back into the space is twofold. That environment that I just talked about, if we don't change it, well, now they do know that they have an additional workload. When their children are a certain age, they have to pick them up from daycare. Because the reality is, there are still industries who are telling men they cannot take off to go get their children, and so someone has to, and sometimes I've seen the default is that falls back to mom. And so what we've had, what we've done at Beary is we say, hey, okay, well, your work schedule is centered around what it is, and at 3 o'clock you need to leave to go do this. As long as you meet the other boundaries that we have set for you, we're okay with that. That's best for your life, that's best for your children, and we're going to respect that too, right? If we ever have to ask you to do something outside of that bounds, we're going to treat it like we would be asking you to cancel a vacation. Like we would be asking you to do something like working on a Sunday, right? We treat it the same way because we know 3 o'clock is the time you have to leave. So if we ask you to stay after 3, it's not saying we wouldn't, but it's not a regularity, and it's a very important situation while we're asking for that. If it's something that can be done the next day at 1, then we do it the next day at 1, right? Because we want to respect that boundary that you and I have set. And the second fold of that, unfortunately, is some people still do not think of women at the level that they should. And so they make comments and they make items about, she left to tend for her family and now she's back in the real world, right? I was in meetings like that. I was in meetings where a boss would say about a woman who I thought was a better engineer than me. You know, she's now coming part-time back as an engineer, part-time mom, right? In those spaces, obviously a woman cannot say anything, okay? But it's a huge impact.
Yeah.
Because it says, well, this is what I think of you.
Yeah.
As I'm saying that. And even if I'm saying that in a soft manner, or I think we're close, and it just is still putting you at a level to say, you're a part-time mom, where we would never say that about a male engineer who we have as a part-time dad. We just wouldn't. So that language that we use, sometimes I think whether that's we know and we don't try, or we haven't had enough practice at it, or we're not moving as fast as we should. I think language plays a big piece in that, of women feeling, because of language used around them, that they're not as valuable as other members once they become a mom.
Yeah.
And so it creates an atmosphere of, do I want to try to do that? That's another barrier or a hurdle I have to overcome. Man, do I really want to put that much effort in doing it? Yeah, that's what I've seen.
I think there's a lot of like technical issues that can be put into place that could really make a space very easy, right? I think that we have kind of like, I think you were maybe ideating this. I don't know if you were actually putting this thing in place, but like, if a woman has a baby, what does it look like to have daycare within my firm? What does it look like to fully support her in everything that she does, so that she can show up and be the very best that she can here? You know, it is possible to balance many different aspects of life, especially when the people who you work for make it a priority because they love you, they like you, they respect you. This year for Curate Conference, you are one of Curate's sponsors.
Very happy to be a sponsor.
Yay!
Yeah, very excited.
Well, first of all, I'm so grateful. Since the very first conversation you and I ever had about Curate, you were like, wow, that's super dope. Like, that's a really good idea. I love that. Why do you enjoy the idea of Curate, and why did you say, yes, I would love to sponsor this?
I think I just liked that the message was creative. It was, hey, we're going to meet you where you are.
Yes.
We're going to talk about real logistical things that can happen, that you need to be pushing your boss for, or that you need to see this as an opportunity. Basically, it wasn't taking the playbook for success and just pitching it to women.
Yeah.
It was saying, well, no, we're women. We have special needs. We have things that we bring to the table differently. Let's just speak to how that could improve careers and that could improve the lives of women. Hey, look, we have a 50% female rate here as engineers, and this is an opportunity for them to have a voice. We would hope that they have a voice every day in our space, but this is a more comfortable space as well for them to be out around other women who have shared experiences as them, and almost they can get sort of energized into what's going on. So the first time we talked about it, a couple of videos I saw, I could feel the energy of the conference. I could feel that this was uplifting. There wasn't a message of, well, you know, you can succeed if you do X, Y, Z, and then if X, Y, Z didn't work for you, it was like, well, I guess I can't succeed. I did not get that vibe.
Yes.
We are very passionate here about supporting things in Baton Rouge. Yes. But supporting things in Baton Rouge that we think are taking the effort and the time to be a real benefit to our community. And we feel like Curate is that. So that was why Curate.
I definitely appreciate that. Every time I walk into this office, first of all, it feels so fun. It feels so light, but everybody is actually doing their work.
Yeah. When they're here, they work.
But you also have this golf.
I have a golf mat in my office, okay. a putty mat in my office. I don't use it that much, but some days it's it's a good thinking exercise, and we use it. It's fun. We got a Xbox in the break room if they want to take a lunch break. Do
you ever have to pull your employees off the Xbox?
Not as much, honestly. Yeah. They don't play as much as I thought they would.
Yeah.
We have to rein them in on conversations about what was in the latest House of the Dragon episode. Or, who's their favorite Disney character, or, they'll be talking, and it's a heated debate, and I'm like, what are we talking about? We're talking about work? They're like, no, I cannot believe that, Ariel is this person's, favorite character, and I'm like, okay, guys, all right, we're good. So sometimes, they really have fun together. I think it was evident last night. We had an engineer of ours that got married. She had 40 employees or 40 people at her wedding.
Wow.
Just a small wedding. She's going to have a bigger ceremony. She's from Honduras. But we had a table of 10 people there that were all from Bear and knew her through that experience. So to me, it really spoke to the level of the people you're closest in your life. Sometimes you get a courtesy, hey, you're my boss, here's an invite to the wedding. To have 5 members of our team and their spouses being invited to something that had such a small group of people, I think really showed an impact that we had in her life. And we love her, and that's fantastic. I always say this, we are not a family, but we are a team. The reason I say that is I feel like people have leveraged the idea of family. We all have family members we don't love, but they're family, so we have to do that right. We want to be a team because on a team, you like everybody. You work consistently together. And I think that's what we've seen that's promoted this environment. Sometimes to the detriment maybe of work, but I would rather be that way than this be something that someone regrets to come in on Monday. I had a mentor say that is you can tell the culture of your company on how your employees feel Sunday evening.
And if they get the Sunday
scaries, that's right. And for the most part, we don't have anybody saying they got Sunday scaries.
Yes.
So.
Oh, good. You said something about like team and family, team versus family. And I think that that's important because I am an athlete, and being a part of a team, it feels like something stronger than family. It feels like my performance is like everything that I do is tethered to your success. And everything that you do is also tethered to my success.
Correct.
And so if we think of that in mind, then we have no choice but to get it right. I love that. That is very beautiful. Okay, so to wrap this up, I want to visit a time in your childhood where, like, what are you saying to that kid now as adult Beary? What are you saying to him?
There was a lot of times in my childhood, in my life, there was a lot of high expectations in our life of what we needed to do and who we needed to be. I think I would tell the kid that you don't have to be so hard on yourself. Mistakes are not final. For better or for worse, in the generation that my parents grew up in, being hard about failures meant that you would be accepting to create solutions because you didn't want to feel that disappointment again. I think new age now, we're looking back at it and saying, yeah, it helped me. It benefited me in a lot of ways. But today, especially what I'm seeing with my employees, is failure is not final. It's a learning experience, and it's how are you going to move and respond to that? I think a lot of time in my life I lost benefits and progression because I thought about failures or I thought about times where I didn't get it right. And later in my life, that's been something that I really just kind of unburdened. This idea of failure's final, and I can't go back to that person because I screwed it up one time we were talking. I can't try this again because it didn't work out the first time I did it. I haven't always had the best conversation in my career, probably with every diverse encounter I've ever had, right? I might have said, oh, there's nothing happening, we treat everybody the same here, and maybe the company I worked at didn't.
Right.
And looking back at that later in life, you could be scared to say, well, one time I said something really insensitive and I didn't realize that someone was going through this hardship. So, man, now I'm a hypocrite. But really, it's just learning from it and saying, well, no, it was true then. I was just naive to it. And so now that I understand it, I can push forward in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that says a lot. This was true for me. This was my understanding of this. But being able to shift your perspective and understand that this was not the truth for somebody else is so meaningful. That's so powerful. My last question for you is, what would you say to leaders in industrial spaces who have a lot of women coming up under them? What would you say, how would you advise them on how to create equitable spaces for those women?
I think it's two things that we just talked about in a bunch of different ways we hit around it. You have to create a space, so you have to understand what are the unique challenges that women are facing. If that means your bottom dollar is going to get hurt by offering childcare, but it's going to greatly improve not only the lives of your engineers, but honestly, if you want to think about it, dollars and cents, productivity of said engineers, right? Well, then, hey, it makes sense to do it. Maybe the ROI is not a one-to-one, but it's an ROI of your people. And so, okay, we created that space. And then secondarily, I think we need to listen. There's a lot of times and a lot of instances where I thought I presented something in a certain way, and maybe I said, well, I did this the same way with everybody else, right? And the goal used to be equal, right? We used to say, well, if I did the same thing to everybody, no one can complain. And in the past couple of years, I've really thought about, well, we shouldn't be the same with everybody, right? Because everybody doesn't communicate the same, doesn't have the same challenges. And I've really harped on my management staff going forward to say, hey, you have to speak to the person you are speaking to, right? And it's an emphasis on us to cut down how we would prefer to speak and how we would prefer to communicate and lead and teach and help grow to acquiesce to what that person under us is doing. That's not a popular thing for managers. A lot of times we think it's not scalable. It's scalable if you, and most of the time, only manage 6 to 10 people, okay? You're not managing, even Elon Musk doesn't manage thousands of people. He has a group of people that he manages, and that goes down the pyramid to manage those people. So the people that are in your sphere and in your space, be unique to their needs and the things that they're doing. And I think for women, we can do that, and we can help them. If we see an opportunity to say, hey, this is what you're doing fantastic at, and I specifically love that you are doing it this way, which is not the way I would do it, we have to take that opportunity to do it, and that's what we try to do here at Beary.
Yay! Courtney, Dr. Courtney, Adam is still good, girl.
I appreciate that. I'll go a long way. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you so much,
Yeah, thanks
Adam.
for
I
having me.
appreciate you. This was
It was
amazing.
awesome.
Yay!
Glad we finally got to do it.
I know. And thank y'all again for tuning in to the Curate for Women Network. I will be sure to put all of Adam's information in case you guys want to follow him and keep up with what he has going on at this super cool engineering firm. And so we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.